And the Cats looking forward to that. What a great history they've got. And the premiership coach from the Tigers, Damien Hardwick, good enough to join us. Thanks, Dimmer.
Thanks, gents.
Tough day for one of your colleagues in the coaching fraternity. What did you make of Brendan Bolton today?
Oh, look, I know Bolts personally and his family, and he's a real stand-up guy. And I thought the class that he, ended his relationship with Carlton was typical of Bolts. And I know from my own point of view, he walks into my club any day of the week. He's a fantastic coach, fantastic character, and I think he'll find himself within the AFL circles pretty quickly.
Dimo, what Carlton Footy Club's going through, not dissimilar to what happened to Richmond for several decades, and I wanted to put up here your very first team that you coached, round 1, 2010.
Mick, why would you do that to me?
Just to take your mind back there and maybe talk about, you said there's 4 or 5 guys still on the list who went on to play in premierships, but what it takes for a club from ground zero, and I'm sure it's more than just players and coaches, but in the front office as well, how you rebuild a club.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we obviously had some good talent there when I first arrived, and some young talent, which was really important. But I think gone are the days where it's just the senior coach. The senior coach can certainly set a philosophy about what you want to do, but it's the people around you that are so important. I've got terrific support with Brendan and Peggy and Tim Livingston, Neil Baum, Blair Hartley. All these people play a really, really crucial part in the running of an organisation. The senior coach is generally at the forefront of these type of events, but without that team of people, I've got no chance. So that's probably the thing I think a lot of people misunderstand about the art of building an AFL club.
You've had a lot of injuries. Who of those main players are you looking forward to getting back, or when will they be back in the second half of the year?
The vast majority come back after the bye. Jack Graham's probably available to play this week, which is a positive for us.
There's a list there.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there, and Jack Rewald will be available probably first game after the bye. Nank's obviously important to us, so unfortunately we've got a little bit of a wait for those guys to come back, but the real positive for us is we've found some terrific talent coming through, and we're really excited about that, and we've got some young players that are still playing well at VFL level as well.
So how deep do you think you're about at the moment? How many players do you go into your list that you can call on tomorrow and go bang?
Oh, I reckon probably 34, 35. There's a couple of players there that are still coming up and coming through, but we're really excited. Craig McRae's done a terrific job with our VFL development program that allows me the talent, to play on a weekly basis. And look, we were disappointing on the weekend versus North, but they were pretty good.
How realistic is Alex Rance to play again this year?
He's a small chance. I saw him training today, and he's just such an impressive human, really, the way he goes about his training. And
so he's running and...
Yeah, well, he's running and doing some agility type movements, and look, I'm astounded how well he heals. He's still got a little bit of swelling in that knee, but in fairness, we'll give him the chance he deserves.
Rioli apparently calls you Dad, so you're very close to the pair of you. How difficult was it for you then to drop him?
Yeah, it is hard, because look, he's such an important player to us, and he's just not quite at the level that we know he can be. Look, he made some inroads to his form on the weekend. He'll be thereabouts this weekend as well, but he's such an important player to the way we want our game to be played, so we need him up and firing and back to his best.
You got just on that point, you got a lot of pressure on blokes to play around that position, though, haven't you, right now?
Yeah, we have. We're blessed in that part of the game. We've probably got too many small forwards in too good a form at the moment. To be fair, Rioli goes out because Daniel Butler's VFL form was just too good to ignore, so he came in on the weekend and did a serviceable job.
I do want to go back a little bit to today. It's 2016, the footy world's heaping a whole lot of pressure on you, and people popping up wanting to take over the board, and a year later you win the premiership. Bucks the year before in the same situation. Are we too quick to sack people in football from your experience?
Look, it is an outcome-based industry. We understand that, and probably in fairness, my position was a little bit different to Bolt's. We'd made finals the previous pre-years, so we had probably some runs on the board, and Brendan, myself and Peggy, and that had a long-standing relationship, a really good understanding, and once again, we sort of knew we weren't as bad as what 2016 the season it was horrific, don't get me wrong, I don't want to go back, but the reality was we sort of knew we had the talent there to bounce back pretty quickly, and look, I don't want to speak for Carlton, but they make their own decisions, but what I do know is that there's some good people in charge of that club as well.
Dimmer, 2 weeks ago, Ivan Soldo copped a week for a raised elbow. Other players like Ablett and Fife have got off, and today Tom Hawkins has got off from the MRO. Are you confused about what the rules are regarding these raised elbows?
Yeah, might get me into trouble here.
We'll pay the fine for you.
Well, in fairness, three or 4 weeks ago, we would have accepted that's a penalty to Soldo, but then we felt the ground, the goalpost had changed, because our understanding was if you raised a forearm, it was automatically graded as intentional. And obviously that changed somewhere along the way, and we're probably a little bit like everyone else. We probably need a little bit of clarity along the way.
Have you asked for that clarification?
We try not to ask for any sort of clarity, because it generally revolves in more unclarity. That's
very cloudy. Hey, Dimmer, I'm not confused, but I've yet to hear a coach give a reasonable explanation as to why this would happen in a game. Now, Dusty, just before half-time, Richmond have kicked their 3rd goal in a row. They're coming. Dusty Martin has kicked 2 of them. There's 3 minutes to go before the half. You've got him sort of half resting and contributing up forward. He's going well. He's blasted 2 goals in 2 minutes. Richmond are looking like they're really starting to edge back into this game. And he comes from the ground with 3 1/4 minutes to go before half-time, and he's about to have a 20-minute break. I'm sorry, I just don't understand.
Well, you tell him to go back on the ground. So I don't tell him to come off.
So the sports science guys, they've got to rest a certain amount, but when can they use their discretion in that situation?
Look, in certain stages, in fairness, I can't remember him actually coming off. I probably would have said after that, look, listen, just stay on, there's 3 minutes to go. But, dust them within themselves. And the players generally use the time, the rotation time, and come on and off at their beck and call, really. So he might have been on the ground for longer than normal. I'm not exactly sure, but once again, if you try and tell Dusty to go back on the ground when he wants to come off...
But do you say to them, hey, listen, if you're having a run and you're feeling really good about it and you've got the legs, stay for an extra 2 minutes?
Sometimes, but the reality is that 2 minutes might bite you in the backside later on, but then it's also someone's on the bench for a longer time. So it sort of clogs you up in various stages.
Tim, opening bounce of the 2017 Grand Final, both teams had 2 coming off the back, 4 forwards. Is a 6-6-6 actually made the game more contested, as Don Pike and Alan Richardson have said, and contributed to lower scoring?
No, I don't think so. I think what happened, the density's just moved. So the density's not around the centre square. Oh, sorry, in the centre square now. It's at probably both ends. And off the top of my head, I don't know what the scores from centre bounce are, but
up slightly, yeah.
Up slightly, yeah. But it's probably moved a little one. The one that's probably caused a little bit of a difference for us is there's not a lot of turnovers from the forward half are down. Scoring is also down from that, which is obviously a high scoring source because of the kick-in rule and the 9-metre rule. So that dynamic has changed the game a little bit. But look, I think in fairness, to me, the competition itself is great. Like, the scores, once again, are always great, but as long as the games are close, I think people are happy to watch it. I know I certainly am, and I'll continue to watch it. And, I think we've got a pretty good season on the cards at the moment.
And you've had an incredible start to the year, Dim, in every sense. You couldn't have coached any better. I think you'll be happy with this too. Time to reveal the NAB Rising Star nominee for round 11, and it goes to Sydney Stack from the Tigers. Yep, Sydney Stack gets the nod. He's played all 9 games this year, and he looks right at home in the yellow and black. The winner of the 2019 NAB Rising Star receives a $20,000 investment portfolio, all thanks to NAB. What a find he's been. Dimmy must be very proud of that young man.
Yeah, he's been incredible. The way he stepped in, he looked like he's obviously born to play AFL footy, the way he uses the ball, and he just wins the ball so well. And, it's a great story for our game that we were able to take a chance on this young fella. We've taken another one on Marlon. Obviously, it's come to our club in the last couple of weeks. I was broken finger, so we possibly won't play this year. But they've got ability, some of these boys, and they're looking forward to those second chances. And this is an opportunity for us to give those, which is great.
You become one of those new age, touchy, feely, cuddly coaches out there. But you still don't mind giving a bit of a spray. This is the vision. You knew this was coming. Now, what happened here?
This was the second time he was late that morning.
In one day?
Well, in fairness, I didn't realise he was changing his boots. The funny thing about it, the very next week, he was out there 5 minutes early. I told him off for getting out there too early. Look, he's a terrific kid, and that wasn't great on my behalf, but... we love him. He's full of confidence. He adds a different dynamic to our footy club, and he's certainly not backwards in coming forward.
Because we often hear different things from different coaches about the way they relate to their players. After you give something like that, do you go back up to him later and have a different conversation with him? Yeah,
I do, because it's not what I'm about. That, like, sometimes it's you get frustrated and all that sort of stuff. But speaking to someone that you care about like that is not ideal. And Yeah, I rang him that day. I spoke to him as well, and he was fine with it. He said, "Is that the best you've got?" He was actually quite embarrassed about it. Better than that. Give me something better than that. But, yeah, he's a very good camp.
Jackie Felgate standing by. Lots of questions for the coach of the Tigers, Jack.
Yeah, we love getting questions from our viewers, Dimmer. And Jared asks you on Facebook, during your time in footy, where do you rank Trent Cotchin as a captain?
Yeah, he's terrific, Trent. You know, once again, I've been very fortunate to play with a lot and have a lot of captains along the way. But the way he leads the club on and off field is so important. He's an extension of our coaching staff, but he really takes control of what we want to do within our four walls. And, you know, the club really is his. We're all custodians, but the way he's single-handedly, I reckon, driven this footy club to what it is today is incredible, and he certainly ranks as my number one.
He is a star. And Andrew on Facebook is also asking you, how was it that North was able to intimidate you so physically?
That's a good question. Who's that bloke? They were outstanding, North. Yeah, I thought they certainly looked big and strong, and once again, we just couldn't nail our tackles. I think we had our least tackle effectiveness on the weekend. It was our worst by about 3 or 4 years, so it was disappointing. We couldn't quite capitalise on the mistakes that we made them make. And look, they played an outstanding brand of footy. They were up and about, played a great brand, and we were really disappointing.